Hello, I'm Anne Murphy. I lead the Global Financial Services practice at Odgers Berndtson, and I'm delighted that I'm joined today by Jeff Sprecher, who is the founder and CEO of Intercontinental Exchange, also known as ICE. A very warm welcome to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
ICE launched in 2000, initially as an electronic trading platform for the energy markets. Since then, you've grown into a Fortune 500 business with revenues of over $5 billion last year, and successfully integrated a number of acquisitions, now bringing innovation to a whole range of markets. So clearing, exchanges, data, technology, listings. So what better person to talk to about transformational leadership?
Great, thank you. I'm happy to share whatever thoughts I can. I hope it helps somebody who's watching.
Thank you. Well, it'd be great just to hear, Jeff, what the biggest lesson you think you've learned in that sort of 20-year period has been, and also just how it's maybe affecting your approach to delivering change now.
Honestly, the biggest lesson I learned was not in business. It was in something I did that I failed at, and that is when I was young, I had wanted to be a race car driver, and so to do that, I went to race car driving school and began to take lessons about how to drive a race car. As you walk the track the first time, the instructor will point out little cracks on the road, and they'll say to you, at this point in the race, on this corner, you need to have your right tire exactly on this spot. And if you hit this spot, as you come out of the curve and unwind your hands, you need to be aimed at this other spot. And if you hit these spots as you go around the corners and around the obstacles, you'll be putting the car at the limit of the adhesion of the tire, and you'll be able to go the fastest. The problem is that if you want to go fast, you aim for the first spot, and by the time you've hit the first spot, the second spot is already upon you. And at some point, you're going so fast that your eyes can't focus from spot to spot to spot. And that's the lesson that I learned in race car driving, which is the really good drivers never look at the spot. They're focused on the horizon. They're looking 3 and 4 corners ahead. They're thinking about something way off in the distance. And they can never look at the crack in the road or the spot that you're supposed to hit. And that's what I learned, and part of the success I've had in business is that all of us today are going to be faced with 20 decisions. What time am I going to go to lunch? How long should I be at lunch? Should I answer this text? Should I answer this email? Should I pick up my phone when it rings? Do I serve this customer? This customer wants a lot of my time and attention. Should I give the customer that time and attention? And those are the spots that we all deal with in business every day. And you can go from spot to spot to spot, and you'll feel good. You will have made 20 impactful decisions, but you didn't look at the horizon. And so I gave myself permission as a manager to be somewhat imprecise on hitting the spots, get to 95% or 97%. In fact, I don't even know, because you just do your best to get through the spots while you keep your eye on the horizon. And for most of us, that want to achieve success, it's thinking about, where do I want my company to go, or where do I want my career to go, or, what is the next major thing that I want to accomplish. And that's a bit uncomfortable, because it means that the spot decisions are not going to be perfect.
And so leading on from that, in your view, what would you say are the major skills and attributes that it takes to be a successful transformational leader?
I will tell you that transformation implies change, and nobody likes change. That's my view, and we don't like to be surprised by change, but we do enjoy the surprise that comes with adventure. And so the trick or the skill or the ability to lead through change is to be transparent and communicative, so that you take the fear of change away and turn it into a adventure, a group adventure, that while we don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, we're going We're going through it together. We're going to communicate. We're going to take the fear away. And for those people that aren't going to be able to get to the end of the adventure, people that are not going to make the transformation, you need to provide off ramps, and you need to be very thoughtful, and so that those people are not subject to this unforeseen change. That means you need to say to people, look, if you don't make it, we're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that that you land in a better spot. And so there's a balance in there that successful, transformative businesses learn how to go through. But at the root of it, it's communicating where you want to go.
And as you look at that horizon, as you think about the future, how do you choose which businesses to grow, which businesses you want to really focus on?
The business that we most focus on are the ones that have the most problems. And that's the one, if you can solve those problems, and usually, by the way, that's the least fun business to be involved in. But it's the one that if you can do that successfully and solve and mitigate those problems, you come out of the other end with a lot of success. So everybody likes the high-flying business where you get a lot of attention and people are going to give you awards, but that's actually not where you win the award.
And one of the things ICE has done very well is to build a robust digital network. What do you think is the key to building that, and how important is it to have one?
Well, when we first built our network, we thought it was about the technology, and that we were going to build the best technology network. And we did build a great technology network. And the reality is nobody cares about a great technology network. A network is sort of by definition as valuable as the other people that are on the network. And so we went for years having a great network, but no business on the network. And until it finally dawned on us that we need a core group of people to initiate the network. We need a core group of people that all want to find each other and communicate with each other and be connected to one another. And we have to bring them on as a core. Once they're there, we need to find, that core that's so desirable that everybody else would love to be a member of that club. And so the trick on networking is figuring out, who the core is and why will they come. And usually it's not the technology, it's the interrelationship with each other. And it's exploring that. The reason Facebook is successful is that everybody that you want to communicate with is on it. And so the valuable networks that we all spend time talking about and thinking about in modern society are the ones that have the most connectivity. That's the key, is getting it started and then dominoing through increasing connectivity.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And can you explain the rationale behind the Ellie Mae acquisition?
Yeah, so Ellie Mae is a really good technology, a really good network for the U.S. home mortgage industry. And in thinking about networks, we started thinking about the U.S. mortgage industry, and when that industry today is very based in paper documents. And so, but if you think about the transaction itself, you have a home buyer and you have a home seller, and each of them probably has a real estate agent, and they may have an appraiser that got a appraisal on the value of the house. They're going to go to a lender. The lender is going to go to a credit reporting agency to learn about you. They're probably going to contact your employer to get your employment history. They're going to want to look at flood insurance, title insurance. They're going to maybe have a lawyer involved or a notary republic who signs the document. And then ultimately, you're going to file those documents with the local jurisdiction, the state or county who records real estate. That's a pretty big network. And right now, that network of all those people are connected by shuffling paper. In today's environment, we can put them through Adobe and make them PDF documents, and we can email them. But the reality is, when they get to the other party, they probably will print them out and put them in a file somewhere. And ultimately, they end up in a cardboard box with a barcode on them and in some storage warehouse waiting to be, to be retrieved someday. So we decided, can we put together a network And Ellie Mae has a very good initiation network, sort of the front end of that process where lenders are talking to home buyers. We acquired a middle part of that network where mortgages are registered in the United States. And then we also acquired another network where counties are connected to closing agents where the ultimate documents are filed. So we said to ourselves, if we can put the front end network together with the middle, together with the back end, we could create an end-to-end network that would allow all the people that I mentioned to be connected to one another at the beginning. And if everybody used a common set of documents, digital documents, you would never actually have to pass them. They would all be able to access a single set of closing rooms, and ultimately there'd be a lot less error. And if those documents could be stored in the cloud somewhere, they would never have to be printed out and put in a paper box. So that's the exciting thing. It seems very obvious, honestly, when you talk about it, but the skill and the trick is getting those people connected to one common network all at the same time. And we've done that by acquiring bits and bobs and then stitching it together.
Well, as a consumer, it sounds fantastic. And it sounds like a big opportunity. Do you have plans to further innovate in the mortgage market?
Yes, once the mortgage is consummated, it tends to go into the capital markets. Then the bank has the mortgage, and they tend to lay off that risk, and others get involved, and mortgages get sold and traded, and mortgage participants, as rates go down, may want to refinance, and or people move from a smaller home to a bigger home as they move through their life, and then back to a smaller home again. And so keeping the network together through the entire life cycle of a home and a homeowner, and the capital markets behind that, is the ultimate goal.
Fantastic. And how much cross-pollination of ideas and best practice do you have across the different parts of the ICE group?
Tremendous. We run the company as a team. Companies tend to give people information on a need-to-know basis, because then if an employee leaves and goes to a competitor, they won't fully know everything about the firm. If they leave, they won't be able to take the clients with them. And so most companies tend to only tell people what they need to know. And what I've learned is that if you share tremendous information and allow everybody access to information and communication, and over-index on sharing, number one, you do what we talked about earlier, which is people feel like they know where the business is going, and so they have some confidence in where we're heading, and they're not afraid. And secondly, it creates loyalty, because people want to be a part of a initiative and an organization that they know and trust. And so what we do is, we have a lot of management meetings where, people that are involved in, for example, people who are not in the United States are contributing to our U.S. mortgage initiative. People that are, in accounting may have really good marketing ideas. People that are in marketing may have really good accounting ideas. Smart people that are engaged and loyal and have energy and enthusiasm can come up with ideas regardless of how you were educated or disciplined or what have you. And so the trick and what we've been able to do there is really allow people to communicate and to participate in decision making. The trade-off is that you have to be able to make quick decisions in a group, and so you can't overthink things. And so you've got a lot of input, but you have to make a decision. Not everybody will get their way on every decision because you have a lot of input, but you're going to print the decision, move on to the next one. And you do that over and over again, and people over time feel like they contributed, whether they was 100% their idea or not.
If we turn to the New York Stock Exchange, how would you say that your efforts to rebuild the exchange were helpful in terms of retrofitting the rest of your organization?
It was helpful in that the company was big and complex, and it was old. It's over 200 years old, which for a US company is incredibly old. It's one of the oldest companies in the United States. was formed about the time that the United States was formed. So it had a lot of internal culture and biases that just came from its history. Because it was big, it was complex. And our goal was to strip it down to its essential, take out layers of bureaucracy, leave as much of the past behind as we could so that we were embracing the future. And so it was a very transformative event. The company today, just for example, is a little over 900 people. When we bought it, it was about 5,000. So massive transformation. By the way, it's much bigger today from a revenue and earnings standpoint than it was. And so what we learned and what we did, and I talked a bit about it already, is we went on an adventure and we had to bring a lot of people along, and a lot of people had to leave. And we were very transparent about it, and we tried to be very thoughtful. And for those people that stayed, we needed them to be able to embrace the new culture. And for those that left, we needed for them to feel comfortable and to be able to transition to something new.
And maybe just to unpick that a little bit more, we talked earlier about the fact that human beings don't tend to like change. What do you do to motivate the people within your organization to embrace change, particularly on that kind of scale?
Yeah, you can only do it by looking at the horizon, and as I started the conversation, and sharing the vision of the horizon. And running a company is a bit like jumping in a river. And the hardest decision is actually the decision to jump. We all have that experience when you're standing on the edge and you don't know, is the water cold? Is it deep? Is there rapids ahead? All of the scary things about making the jump. And so my job as the leader is to convince everybody that we need to make a jump. But once you're in the river, there's very little that you can do. The river's taking you somewhere, and you're floating down the river. And the reality is you can paddle to the left or paddle to the right to avoid the rocks. Like I say, once you get everyone in the river, empower them to go left and right, and recognize that we're on an adventure, that then we've seen the horizon where we want to end up. It sort of honestly plays itself out.
And are there any aspects of transformational leadership we haven't touched on that you'd like to highlight?
I think the one thing I would say, just to reiterate, is you're going to be afraid of change. Anyone that tells you they're not afraid of change, I think, is lying to you. We all have different tolerances, but at the end of the day, significant unforeseen change is something all of us will try to avoid. And the avoidance of change can destroy an organization. And so turning change into a common adventure, and getting people to embrace adventure is much easier. So when leaders talk about we need to change this or change that, I always roll my eyes and think, no, what we really need to do is go on a new adventure.
And we're obviously not able to be in the same room recording this interview today, unfortunately. How's your company managed over the last 12 months in terms of going virtual, and what impact has that had for you in terms of getting business done?
Well, it's a good news, bad news for us, probably like many companies. I mean, the good news is that, we've had the best year in my company's history financially, and we've done the biggest acquisition in my company's history with the Ellie Mae deal. So on paper, we've done phenomenally well. And by the way, we're working from home. It's a virtual company, and we have offices around the world. And what we have found is that every country is dealing with this slightly differently. And so none of us have exactly the same work from home experience. but nonetheless, the company has done phenomenally well. I worry about exactly what we've talked about in this conversation, or that I've talked about, is how do you communicate the things that I think matter? How do you work together as a group to embrace adventure? How do you create the culture of supporting one another? How do you keep your eyes above the horizon? And, you know, for each employee, how are you thinking about career advancement in an environment where the only people you're touching are those that happen to be on the current video with you? You know, we've lost the ability to bump into each other in the hallway, or to sort of witness each other's behaviors, or to lead by example and not by fiat. And those cultural connections that we have when we're together, including connections that we have when we all go bowling after work, or ride together in a car going to a meeting, or going to lunch together. Those interpersonal connections where we mentor each other and share common experience and drive common culture are lacking. And so I am of the opinion that we know how to run a company really well in this environment, but I'm not yet convinced that we know how to build a company in this environment.
I think we're all learning on that point. And over the last few years, you've done some work to continue to evolve and refresh your board, and we've been delighted to have been part of some of that. What have been your guiding principles in terms of getting the right team together?
Well, I've learned a lot about it because I've been in leadership of this company now for 20 years, and my company, because it has a lot of regulated subsidiaries, has a lot of independent boards. So our ecosystem around the company has dozens and dozens and dozens of directors, and is constantly looking for good people to fill open positions. And my thoughts have really evolved on it. And I would tell you that the most important thing to me is the ability to communicate in a group. You know, we, like every company, and like I'm sure all of your clients, we are embracing more diversity. But the reality is, what we're really looking for is diversity of thought. And the hard thing for a board, and it's a bit of an art as opposed to a science, is to create a network, like we talked about, of people that have diverse views, that respect one another, that can share those diverse views in a way that then drives a consensus thinking, that results in a decision, that gives everybody an opportunity to contribute, but that reaches resolution quickly without bringing the board down to its knees. The board overseeing me and my management team is there to challenge our thinking, and do so in a way that's that will have the right outcome, and it's not combative challenge. It's thoughtful challenge. The trick is, how do I find people that match the culture of the other people on the board so that they can make a contribution. And of all the boards that we have, they all have different cultures, and people that we have that will work well on one of our boards would actually not be a good director on other boards. And I've seen it because I participate in many of the board meetings around my company. And so matching up that network, we'll call it, that ecosystem of trust and communication is the skill, and that's what you all do. And that's, you know, as we struggle over finding good people, where we really have to take a bit of risk and reach consensus with the other members of the board on how can this new person contribute and help us, and how do we embrace them and fit them into our culture.
Jeff, many thanks indeed for your insights. It's been really fascinating talking to you today. And let me wish both you and the business every success for the next 20 years and beyond.
Thank you. And I hope that some of these stories that I regaled you with will help somebody else who's struggling at an early part of their career.
I'm sure they will. Thank you again.
Thank you.